Hello, good evening. Flying solo this evening. Jeff is actually traveling to the Impressions uh, Dallas show coming up this week at the end of the week. So I will be taking you through a design that we started a couple of episodes ago. Jeff did show the digitizing of this Halloween inspired gnome design in Tajima Pulse, and I'm going to go ahead and take you through it using the Wilcom EmbroideryStudio software. For those who don't know me, my name is Justin Armenta with JA Digitizing Studios. I'm here representing the Embroidery Nerd this evening. Couple of things I just wanted to go over, some housekeeping. If you did not see us a couple of weeks ago, our live was actually with Wilcom America, Wilcom USA, and we did a webinar with them showing how to do editing on EMB files as well as DST files. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to that webinar here in the comments if you want to check that out, if you haven't had a chance to watch that. Some good information. There was a design that we were referring to throughout that uh, webinar as well. That was a free giveaway, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that link as well, so you can check that out. So there's the webinar link as well as the file giveaway link in case you missed that. So I'm just going to grab a couple comments here. We have Doug coming in from Los Angeles. Hello, Doug. Thank you for joining us. We have Suzanne coming in from Rhode Island. Hello, Suzanne. I know a lot of you might be traveling as well to the show this week. I know it's a big show in Dallas that Impressions has. If you haven't seen my posts on the hat design that I did for TexMac, the Happy Japan distributor, they're going to be at the show and they're going to be running that design. So check out their booth if you are at the show. It's a really cool 3D puff dragon design that I did for Renee at TexMac, and they're going to have that on the machine. So I believe they're actually going to have another design that I really couldn't show off because it was part of their unveiling at the show with something new that they have there. But they have a jacket back that I think they're going to be running on that has a rocket shooting up. I did some work on that with Renee as well. So check out their booth if you're at the show. So let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and grab my screen here. And let's switch this around. If I can get used to these buttons here, where I'm trying to enlarge this other screen here. Let's make that spotlight. There we go. Okay. So we have this little gnome guy that's coming in, and I believe last time Jeff and I decided that we're going to do it about 4 inches tall. Typically, these kind of festive designs are used things like on either an oversized left chest or maybe a center chest on a sweatshirt or a jacket or something like that, or even like some household decorations, towels or whatnot. So we decided to go about 4 inches tall. So if I wouldn't go ahead and grab the artwork here, and if I transform by line, I can go ahead and click the very bottom point, click the top point, and I'm going to resize that to 4 inches. All right, that takes it down. I'm going to go ahead and position that into the center of my digitizing workspace. And I am going to go ahead and lock this down. That way I can't select the artwork anymore and accidentally grab it while I'm digitizing. So, and forgive me, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth here since I am on my own, just to see if there's any questions or comments. We do have one. We have Art coming in from the Philippines. Hello, Art. And we have Letty at Walker Woods Creations. It's going to be a phenomenal design, hopefully. And hopefully I get through most of it. If not, I'll finish it up this week sometime and post a download to the free design so you can get a copy of that and play with it a little bit. All right. So once we get the size down that we want, I'm going to go through here and start kind of analyzing the design and see what kind of stitches that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to grab my measuring tool, and first I'm going to kind of measure these outlines to see how wide they are. Um, some of them are well under 1 millimeter. Some are close to the 1 millimeter mark. I always, lean towards using satin borders just because I think it gives it a nice, bolder, cleaner look to it. So I think what I'm going to do is the majority of these outlines, I'm going to go ahead and create as satins and just thicken them up just a bit so they will work at a satin width. Typically, you don't want to work with anything that's under 1 millimeter wide. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of analyze it and see where I want to break this up. Because of the size of the design, I don't particularly think it's a good idea to do all the inside colors and try to come back and do all the outlines afterwards. Only because for registration purposes, you want those outlines to stay really tight and line up with the bottom stitches or the fill stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and break this up. So I think what I'll do is, since these elements are kind of in the background, behind the beard, behind the hat, behind the feet, I'm going to go ahead and do the broom in this arm first. And then I think what I'll do is come back and do the body and beard, and then finish it off with the nose and the hat. So I'm going to break this up into 3 different sections. So typically what I like doing is I will start with the outlines, and I'll show you in just a moment why I do that. Let's go ahead and set this to 1.2 millimeters. Underlay running stitch is good. I start with the outlines because that will kind of give me a guide of where I need to make, gives me a realistic view of how wide those outlines are going to be once they're all said and done. If I go by just the artwork, right now the artwork is a little bit thinner than what I'm actually going to be digitizing it at. So if I digitize the outlines first, it's going to give me a visual of how wide those borders are going to be, and that way I can know where to compensate those inside colors as far as push and pull. So I did set that to 1.2. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit more width. It's also got some pull comp on it. So since I have all the settings set on this outline that I know I'm going to be using throughout, pretty much throughout the design, I can go ahead and select that element and use the make properties current. If I click that, that means I'm copying those properties. And that way, once I go through and I'm selecting that same tool, it's going to go ahead and use those same properties. So I'm just going to come back over here. Right now, I'm not going to worry too much about start and stop points. I'm just going to kind of zoom through the elements and get those digitized. And then I'll go back and make sure that the pathing is correct. Let's travel stitch down to here. Let's see, we're doing that arm part. Yeah, that's part of the arm that we're doing back here. So let's go grab my satin C again. Just travel over to this side. And if you're going back and forth between tools, like the satin C and running stitch, a quick keyboard shortcut so you don't have to go back to your toolbar every time is if you hit the space bar between each element, it'll actually toggle back and forth between the 2 tools. So I know I'm toggling back and forth between the running stitch travel stitches here and the satin C tool. So just a quick little shortcut. I'm going to go ahead and walk over to this side. Again, I'm always thinking, the path that I want to go, so I'm not going back and forth over each other, or I'm not causing unnecessary trims. knowing that I'm starting at this top of the broomstick and I'm working my way down. And once we get to this side, since this is tucked up underneath the mustache or beard here, I'm gonna, come over to this side and work my way back around. So I'm continuing to travel through the design instead of jumping around trims, unnecessary travel stitches and whatnot. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the satin seed just to get the shape of these kind of tops of the broom here, and I'm going to go back in and kind of edit those ends to kind of come down to a point. Because I am using the satin seed tool, it is going to be a uniform thickness to each of the lines, and that way, that's the reason why all these have the same thicknesses here. But what you can do, you can actually just travel to here, is if you select these items and you right click or press Control K and break apart, these satins now became satin A inputs where it's going to give you the point counterpoint. So I can kind of come in here and kind of select some of these nodes and move them around so they're a little bit more pointy like the artwork. Kind of fix these overlaps a little bit. Let's go ahead and take the true view off so I can kind of see the shape of these. Now, I always teach in the classes that I teach that digitizing doesn't have to be exact when it comes to the artwork. It's more of an interpretation of the artwork. And so I kind of interpret things to best resemble the artwork, but it's going to give you the best possible outcome when it comes to embroidery. So if you can see here, I'm not following maybe every single line the way it is in the art. And even kind of, there was this line here that's coming off that I know this side of the detail is so thick that I don't really need to try to make this other line come off of there because it's going to be basically covering that area. But I'm just kind of using these ends of the satin stitches to kind of get that sharper look to them. All right. And since the thickness of these lines are so thick that I know that if I try to do these, all three of these lines here with those satins, they're just going to run right over to each other and you're not going to see that darker brown area. So I'm actually going to kind of modify this area a little bit and just do these inner parts as running stitches. And that way they will show the detail on those inner parts, but it's not going to close up this area of this, I guess, the tie of the broom itself. So I made sure I went ahead and went back and forth over each other at least 2 times to make sure that these are thick enough and wide enough to make up for the detail. All right, so back to where I was at here. Come down to the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and do like I did at the top where I am utilizing the tool of just getting the outline there. Oops. Let's get kind of a sharper corner there. And I'm going to make this a little bit wider to make sure we get some of that detail in there and not close up as much. Again, interpretation of the design, not exactly meeting every single line the way it is, but I'm going to do it in a way that's going to be best for the quality of the embroidery when it comes down to it. Now there is a tool. I'm going to go ahead and save this really quick. Okay. Always save, 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 so you don't lose any of your designs or any progress that you make on your design. So these sharp corners, I don't particularly like how these turn and have really long stitches. What's going to cause the longer stitches in the corners, and it's going to cause the inner area here really tight stitches, so you can possibly get some thread breaks in there. So on these two particular ones, I'm going to go ahead and use the capping tool. And if you get the right settings there, see how they capped the ends of these tips. So they're not turning corners. They're actually coming down, and then the satin's going to come back up. And so it doesn't have that sharp corner to it. So we'll pull this in just a bit because it is getting a little bit too... Now, moving the end point of that was changing the values or the angle of that tip, so that's why it was getting rid of that capped corner. But I'm going to actually break those apart. And when you break those apart, those actually become separate elements as far as the satin stitches. And that way I can come in here and kind of do what I did at the top of the broom and kind of shape my points. Maybe make these a little bit curved here. Oops. And see with this one here. Make these a little bit straighter in the angles. Kind of gave some weird angles there on those, so just cleaning up what the computer chose to do as far as the nodes and the angles once I broke it up. Okay. All right, so I have the inside of this broom that I need to come up to as well, so I'm going to go ahead and travel over there. Grab my satin T, or satin C, I'm sorry. All right, so I basically have the full outline of that section there. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the fill areas of the design. And again, the reason why I did the outlines first, because if you can see, they are a lot wider or bolder than the actual artwork. So now I can go by the actual outlines that I digitized for the stitched outline, and I know where I can utilize the width of those outlines to utilize the compensation as far as push and pull of the inner colors. So I am glancing over to the comments, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We have Carlos in from Portugal. Hello, Carlos. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get my measuring tool again and see how wide these darker areas for the handle are. And those are just under 4 millimeters wide. So I think a satin stitch is going to do fine with those. So if I'm going to go ahead and grab my satin tool, go ahead and grab a zigzag underlay, give it a little bit more density to kind of give it some foundation. Okay, so compensating for the push, since I know this is going to be the end of the satin, it's going to be pushing outwards. I don't want to start digitizing too close to the end because I know that'll push out past the satin outline. So I could actually cut it back quite a bit. And so because I know it's going to push more out this way as it sews. And I'm also going ahead and digitizing out towards the outer part of the outline, and that's going to compensate for the actual pull. Just brown. It's going to compensate for the pull inwards of the satin outlines. So it's going to be fully up underneath the outlines, and that's going to cover. There's not going to be any gaps in here because as those satins pull in, they're going to still stay underneath that outline, and then the this is pulled in enough that it's not going to push outside of the outline. Would love to see your design stitched out slower for happy. Are you talking about this design on a happy, or the design that I did for Tex-Mex? Let me know, Doug. All right, do some travel stitches here. And I'm not too concerned about where those travel stitches are because the brown is the first inside fill color. So traveling through here, I know the dark gray of his arm and hand are going to cover that area. So I'm just traveling back down to this area to work on the bottom of the broom handle. So again, going to the outside of the outline. And now I'm just dropping this back using the sequencing tool. So I'm dropping it back underneath the outline. Let's go ahead and do the inside color of the arm here. Because I want things to kind of have the continuity and making sure that this arm looks like this, the same as this arm. Because there are smaller areas in here, just measuring these, they are small enough to do as satin stitches. But coming back down and looking at how wide this arm is, this is almost 10 millimeters wide. So I'm actually going to do this arm in a fill stitch. So in order for these to match, I'm going to go ahead and do a fill stitch on this side as well. So it's going to be a complex tatami fill. So again, I'm keeping in mind that I'm overlapping these elements because I do want to make sure that I'm compensating for the push and pull. Doug was saying the dragon for Tex-Mex. Well, if you're going to be at the show, Doug, I'm not sure if you're going to travel out to Texas. They are going to be running it on the Happy Machines at the Impression Show. I didn't get too much footage of it running when I ran it. Unfortunately, I have Tajimas, so I didn't run it on a Happy Machine, but I did run it on the Tajimas, so I don't have too much footage of that running. So this had the settings for a satin stitch, so I'm going to go ahead and under my fills, I'm going to apply the tatami. I'm going to go ahead and set my densities here. I am going to use a little bit heavier density throughout just because knowing the use of this design, this is where it's kind of hard having stock designs and selling them because it's not just a one size fits all depending on the garment style, garment color, garment fabric. But knowing that these type of holiday designs, being that it's colder weather, it's more than likely going to be done in a sweatshirt or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit more heavier density throughout, so it does get coverage. All right, so I'm setting that back up. Travel back over to the hand. Go ahead and do the fill on the hand here. I need to set my settings to the fill stitch. We go ahead and change the angle, and if you could see here, I do at the same angle of your angle of the fill, I cut off those ends because fills tend to push out quite a bit more than satin stitches. So I do cut those off, and I'm going to kind of pull it out here to make sure that as that fill pulls, it's not going to pull from up underneath the outline there. So go ahead and resequence. Okay, so now we have the broomstick, we have the arm and the hand there. Yeah, Doug's not going to Texas, but he does the Long Beach. Yes, I do Long Beach every year. It's a little bit more of a drive for me than it is for you, Doug. But yeah, the Long Beach one is kind of my home show that I usually go to and teach. If you've never been to an impression show, they're awesome shows, great machinery, great classes. I know Eric Campbell's at Dallas this year, so he's doing some classes. Jeff actually is gonna, I believe Jeff's gonna be doing some classes as well in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. He's gonna be doing some work with Madeira there. So yeah, if you're in the area or it's easy for you to get to Texas. Um, the Dallas show is a good one. I actually did go 1 year uh, to that show, and it was definitely a good show. So check it out. Okay, so now we got the broom. I'm gonna go ahead and do some more fill stitches for the broom here. Let's go ahead and bring it outside of this outline here. I can stop it up underneath the tie. Let's see where my angle is here. Yep, that's a good angle. Let's make that orange. Pop it up underneath. For the bottom of the broom here, I'm actually gonna maybe utilize the Florentine effect on the fill, which I'll go ahead and show you. You just go ahead and digitize as if it were a fill. Kind of overlap the shoe there. So again, compensating for the pull of that fill. And the Florentine effect in Wilcom, it actually allows you to kind of bend uh, the angle of the fill. So it's not just a true straight fill like the rest of the fills you see here. All you have is the one angle, but you could actually come in here and kind of change the flow of the fill, if you will, and you can add some handles to that, so it gives it a little bit more of a natural flow. I'm making it kind of look like the ends of the broom, how I guess the hairs of the broom. I'm not sure what the the correct terminology is. The bristles of the broom gives it a little bit of a different look, and also going in here and changing, you could change the randomness of the fill itself, and it might give it a little bit more natural look to it as far as the pattern. So because the angle is pushing out this way, the final angle of this Florentine effect, I am going to kind of pull it back to make sure that it's not pushing outside the outline there. Put that in its place. There we go. So as you can see, that fill has just a little bit more of a different pattern to kind of give it that natural straw look, or the bristles look. Thank you, Doug. He said he always enjoys my classes. I do appreciate that. I love seeing everybody throughout the year that I speak to online and emails and all that, and then I finally get to see them at the show. It's always a lot of fun. Okay, so another thing that I do is I usually use highly contrasting threads as far as in my thread chart. If I'm digitizing in black and I'm going over black elements, sometimes it is hard to see where the outlines and the nodes and the stitches are. So I do digitize usually in a highly contrasting color, and then I'll just go ahead and as I'm finishing those sections. Oh, you know what? I didn't change the sequencing. I wasn't worried about the stop and end or start and end points of the outline here, because it's going to come back and redo that. So if you hit H, or you go into the reshaping tool, the green diamond is going to be your start point, and the red. Let's go ahead. I'm going to lock the undercolors, and that way I don't accidentally grab those as I'm going through it, or I could hide them. You could also hide the artwork, and that way so things are a little bit clearer. But the The red crosshairs is going to be your endpoint. So I can just kind of tab through the different elements and make sure that the start and end points are where I want them to be. And you just simply click and hold and drag. Or you could also grab all the elements in sequential, and if you hit J, it will automatically pick the closest join. And that way I don't have to individually go through and change each individual thing. But as you can see, the start points, this might be a little bit easier to see, the start points, and then the end point is at the next start point, and so on and so forth, start and end. The only thing about using that tool with the J, it does pick the end points and the start points right the closest point where those two elements actually touch. So as you can see that this satin here touches for the first time right in this area here, and that's why it put the endpoint right there. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. That way it just doesn't sew and then come back and kind of start in a weird, awkward area. So I am going to change that. That's fine. Again, kind of putting it at the end of that satin. Put that up there. This is kind of weird here. And there we go. Okay. Now that we have all that, I'm going to unhide everything. I'm going to grab that green outline, change it to black. Oh, I did forget these two little things in here. So I'm going to go ahead and add, let's do kind of a dark red, some satin stitches here. I'm going to overlap the first one way into the, way over that outline. Just to make sure that the two elements pulling together, and the second one I'll go ahead and line it up with the outline, and that way you can kind of have some overlap between the two, and when they pull away from each other, there isn't going to be any gap in there. So there we go. Let's see if there's any questions here as I'm dropping stuff. All right. Get my artwork back up. So now, usually when I'm done with this section, I'll either select it and I'll lock it. So again, pressing K or right-clicking on the elements in your color object list, and you can lock. Or you can absolutely just go ahead and grab them and hide them as well, so you can't see them. I usually lock them just to make sure that I don't accidentally grab any of the elements. You know, if it's locked, you can't grab any of it, but it's still there, so I can see what stitches are. And as I'm digitizing, I can go ahead and see where they're going to interact and what I need to do, any adjustments that I need to make. So I think we said we're going to do the body, feet, this arm, and the beard. Again, utilizing I'm going to change my thread to the bright green again. And as you can see, the body being pretty dark and a dark gray and the outline black, you can actually lighten your artwork so the contrast is a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and work my way around this way. And go through and plot these points here. Now, one thing that did come up when Jeff was doing this, these dots inside the little trim of the dress or the shirt that he's wearing, instead of having the 6 dots trim, creating very small elements here that are going to sew a trim and a lock. that can add some extra stitches to the backside of your design, kind of those really tough knots, because you're not only doing your tie-in, your satin, and your lock stitches all in this very small place. So we did modify the design just a hair, made these dots a little bit bigger, and that way we can kind of travel through. I'm going to go ahead and travel up here. And I am staying concerned about where my travel lines are in this one, because we are outlining both the shirt and the beard at the same time. So I don't want that travel stitch to go over any of those bottom fill colors there. So I am staying within the outline of the beard. And I'll go ahead and digitize the outline here. So what we did was, I'm going to go ahead and make these dots. And we made these a little bit bigger. So what we can do here is, instead of having the dots trim at the end, I'm going to go ahead and travel and jump to these elements and jump back. Let's copy this over. If you right click on an object and select it that way and drag and drop, it actually will duplicate that object and drop it to wherever you dragged it over to. So right click, drag and drop, jump back over. Now I'm going to resequence this. So now it is, nope, that needs to go up one, over. So I can go ahead and select all of those. I'm going to press J, and now they are closest point. So when you're actually sewing, these jumps between the outline and the circles are going to be very, very small and very, very not very noticeable. So you're kind of hiding those jumps, and that way you're going to have your needle down, you're sewing consistent, you're not going to have any trims, it's not going to slow down production, and you're going to still get the same feel of the design. You're not changing too much of the design where it's, completely changing the look of the design at all. So because the beard is on top of the body, I'm going to go ahead and travel again on the outline here. Let's see, travel over to the shoe, following the outline of the artwork. Unfortunately, there is a comment or a question in the comments that is in a different language, so I am unable to read and or answer anything on that. I do apologize. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and travel up here, jump across, again, copying, drag and drop, jump across. I'll go ahead and just digitize these travel stitches and then resequence as I copy these. Jump back over, do the outline. And on this side, the outline's actually a little bit closer to those dots, so I actually didn't really even need to worry about hiding those as much. I could always kind of move this outline over so it's closer to the look of the other side. And I'm going to have to move my travel stitches up a little bit more since I moved that outline. Again, just making small adjustments as I go throughout the design. Making sure my travel stitches are all going to be hidden. Select in closest join again. Oh, sequencing is wrong. Let's see. We need travel dot. If you hold down Control as you select objects in the sequence that you want them to be sequenced correctly, if you hold down Control, then select them, and then you go to the sequence by selects and select that, it's going to go sequence those in the same sequence that you were selecting them at. So there we go. I'm going to come back here. Again, kind of just zooming through this just so we can get as much digitizing live as possible. I'll go ahead and fix the start and stops and the travel path on everything in a little while here. I'm actually going to go through and do that. I'll come back and add some travel stitches because I know the sequencing that I'm doing is a little bit odd. I'm kind of going from the top or the top down instead of the bottom up. Take those capping corners off for this. I'll come back and add the travel stitches here. So again, sequencing, if I want this, hold down Control, I want the travel stitch, I want the end of the hand, middle part, and then the upper arm. You hit the sequencing. Now you can see the overlap is correct, and kind of the ends of those satins are hidden up underneath the next element. So it looks like all I have left is the outline of the beard. So I'm going to travel over here. Again, I haven't done the hat, and I'm not doing the hat fill until after this part, so I'm not worried about the travel stitches going into that section there. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of zoom through the ends of this here. And it's very, very important, I think, to learn the hotkeys because my left hand is always on the keyboard. The more you digitize, the more you're going to get used to what hotkey is what. For instance, just now I hit S to toggle the stitch view of the design. So I'm going to go through here. That's the end of that. Would you use the branching tool? You can. What Doug's referring to is instead of traveling down here, and I have these three separate elements, if you select those and you go to your branching tool, which is right here on your toolbar, what you'll do is you'll select your start point. So if I'm ending at this one point here, and you select your end point, it'll actually calculate the travel stitches that goes down, sews that element, then this element, that element. It calculates from where you're choosing your start point to your end point and how those are going to overlap. It's a great tool to use. I like more control of making sure it's going to start and stop exactly where I want it to be, because you are relying on the travel stitches and how much underlay stitches that it puts in it. The computer's going to calculate that, so it may travel and do this part of it and then come back and do another part of it when I may want it to sew in a different sequence that actually of where it sews. There are times in the calculations where it may look kind of weird where this side of the satin is sewing on top of this side because it decides to do part of a satin come back down and do another part, and then travel again. Again, you're relying on the computer's view of the sew sequence. So I tend to shy away from the branching tool when I'm digitizing. Not to say that again, it's an easy tool that you don't have to worry about sequencing yourself. So yeah, it's definitely a cool tool to use. Okay, so there are some sharp points in here, so you're getting kind of these weird ends. It's capping some of them, depending on how sharp that angle is. You can go in here and change the capping settings, and hopefully it did pick up almost all of them except for this one. So typically what I'll do is I'll come in here and kind of adjust. There you go. Just adjusting where one node sits or another can help that capping tool do its thing. This one here is kind of wide, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust some things. Um, Honestly, what I'd probably do just to no, I think this is doing a good job of capping those ends that we need. So we got the outline of the body per se. So again, looking at the kind of front to back or back to front overlapping. You have the shoes that are going to be down first. Let's go ahead and take those stitches off. You have the shoes that are up underneath the shirt. You have the shirt that's behind the beard. So I'm going to go ahead and actually digitize in that order. This is kind of a weird shape here, so I'm just fixing this. All right, so let's go to my fill tool here. Again, going to the outline side. There are kind of some highlights going on with the shoe down here being two different colors. I'm going to go with simplicity. And I know a lot of people that are using these for personal items or something fun. The last thing they want to do is having to change out a bunch of threads on their machines. So instead of having two different color oranges, let's just stick with one, and that way it's a little bit more simple for the end user. And let's measure this area. It's getting up there in width. It's almost 7 millimeters wide, and the fact that it has these dots sewing on top of it, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the fill stitch again for this area. It gives it a little bit flatter area, and those dots will sew a lot better on top of them. So let's go ahead and again, doing a little bit of overlap to the outline there. Change my angle. I am changing the angles differently than the shoe. The shoe, as you can see, is sewing this direction. I tend to change up my angles quite a bit, just because it gives you a lot more texture in your design. So everything doesn't look exactly the same, have the same sheen. The lights get to reflect differently off the thread itself, so it may even look like two different color oranges the way the light hits it. So you're not having this kind of this one-dimensional flat design. If anybody listens to us regularly, I joke with Jeff saying that he he digitizes in a flat way, but he's not here to defend himself, so let's leave it at that. Jeff and I have a good time going back and forth and teasing each other about our work. He's a phenomenal digitizer. I just like giving him crap. I'm considered the old man in the group because I've been doing it a lot longer. So the travel stitch here, even though I haven't done the fill stitch of the beard, I am kind of hugging to the outline here so it stays up underneath the black element. Being that orange is such a bright color, I don't want that coming up underneath the white or the light gray of the beard, because there's a chance that travel stitch would show through that top thread since the orange is such a bright color. So I am kind of avoiding that area. Let's go with my fill stitch on the shoe here. Again, stopping it short. Kind of overlapping this area. It keeps defaulting to the green. So I hit H to get my angle. So just kind of adjusting these areas, making sure that the push and pull is going to be compensated there. Another fill for the bottom of the shirt. So I'm obviously not going to be able to finish this today, so we'll just finish out the last few minutes on what I have going here. But I do promise that either later this week or maybe this weekend when I have a little bit of quiet, I will definitely finish this design and share it with a download link so everybody could sew it out and check it out and enjoy it as well. So let's all right. All right, just checking here to see if there is any questions, which it does not look like it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We're coming down to the last few minutes here. I just want to open it up to make sure that there isn't any comments or questions there. If you came late to the show at the beginning, I did post some links up there a couple weeks ago. Jeff and I had the opportunity to do a webinar with Wilcom. It is on editing files, not only editing EMB files that are native to Wilcom, but also machine files such as the DST, and how much Wilcom is geared to edit, and how much different it is between a native design and a machine design. But there's a link for that webinar with Wilcom. There's also a link to the download for the design, the sweater weather design that we were showcasing on those on that webinar. There's a link to download that free design. Any and all things Embroidery Nerd, you can reach us at links.mnerd.com. I went ahead and put that in the comments as well. You can find us on Discord, our Facebook group, our Facebook page, our Instagram, our YouTube. This is on YouTube. It's saved on YouTube in case you did not see it live. Just click on the live tab and get to the videos on our page. Our website, the thread converter, the embroiderynerd.io. That's got great tools for any embroiderer out there. Thread chart conversion from colors to different thread to thread. LinkedIn, our Reddit, and everything Embroidery Nerd there. As far as Halloween designs, like I said, I'll have this one available for download, but I also have a stock library. If you're not aware, on top of my custom digitizing, I do have some Halloween designs for the season. Quite a bit on there. I'm looking here that are free for download. So check out some fonts, some designs that are really cool and fun to play with for Halloween. That's my personal favorite season of the year. So if I have some time, maybe I'll come out with some new stuff for the season, maybe a font or some designs. But I thank everybody for sharing the last hour with me in your evening. I hope you have a good rest of the night and a great week. If you do go to the show, check out TexMac, um, TexMac Happy Japan. Their booth, you can see my 3D puff dragon design running on their machines, as well as the rocket design that they're going to be running at the show. So we will see you in another 2 weeks. If you have any questions ever, just let us know. We'll talk to you all later.